You're live.
She's making me dance, so. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to the shop. And this is the time where I get to stick my foot in my mouth and my wife then sends me to the doghouse after we're all done. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun today. This is
It's just another Tuesday night.
This is our monthly live Q&A. We do this usually the middle week of the month. And so whatever questions you have, go ahead and throw those down in the chat. We'll try and get to as many of them as we can. Can't always make them all, but we'll try and answer as many as we can tonight. Oh, and you may have noticed we have the Knights of the White Oak shirts are now in stock. So Sarah and I finally got ours in. And so if you want to see that, there is the banner down below with Teespring. It now has all of the shirts there. So if you want to be a Knight of the White Oak, you can go get your shirt. Lots of fun things actually coming up here. I've got a couple projects I'm in the middle of. We're doing a box. This is going to be a collaboration with Maker 231. So that should be kind of fun coming up. He's been putting a few videos on the Hive Mind recently. And then we've got I have so many questions about my clamps up there, and I've been wanting to do one with these ones. They're a little bit different style. They have the pin going through as opposed to a clip that's on the bottom. And these are called sash clamps. So I have a pair of these that were actually sent to me by a friend in Europe because these are fairly common over there and they're very hard to find here. So I was happy to finally get a set of them. So I'll have a video talking about these and the other clamps. And then Sarah has been working in the shop, and she is now getting to the point where she's working on the top.
Are we ready? Are we ready?
You're just saying, I'll turn this one on.
The labor of love, I guess. Y'all didn't know how laborious it is to apparently take a twist out of a workbench. I did not know.
Yeah, we were rushing through the glue up, and so the top on this is twisted quite a bit, actually.
Had I known this, I would have chosen epoxy. Had I known. I'm word to the wise. Invest in epoxy. Because I think I've done this and this.
No, you haven't done that yet.
Well,
You've done 2 inches and 1 inch.
The little bit I accomplished, I think, took an hour. And there's a whole lot more to do. So that's why there's no video out yet.
Yeah.
Something about another job I have to work to. And
so hopefully this top will be not this weekend, but next weekend we'll have the first video from her build. So that is coming up.
I like the suggestion of someone making it wood by Wright shorts that Sarah does, and like little carving or something. I like that idea.
Now, once you have your own bench, there's a lot. Woodworking is a pain until you actually get a bench, and once you have a bench, then especially at your height, it works and everything.
Okay, yeah, I have to say, when that was put down there, that was a whole lot easier than doing anything on James's bench. Oh yeah, and the sawhorses.
We currently just have it sitting on top of the saw bench, and so it's like down at my knees, but it's actually closer to her working height than this is. So it's going to be a short bench.
They're getting a lot of buffering. I don't know why you're getting
Sorry,
a lot of buffering.
it's all about the connection speed on both ends.
Sorry.
So yeah, those are the fun things coming up. We got a few other projects in the works, but yeah, we're gonna have interesting things. If you want to ask questions about that, great. Otherwise, I'm sure we have a lot of questions in the chat. So what's the first one?
Okay, hang on.
I'm hanging on for dear life.
Half pint, half
Holding.
time.
That's a good channel name. Half pint, half time.
All right, we'll start with question number 1. And if I skip them, I'm sorry. Harold Golden asked, have you ever tried scorching wood and brushing out the char to give a raised grain? The method is called
Shogiban.
So, yeah, that.
Yes, I have done that. I haven't done it in years. I'm not a big fan of the look. It just doesn't intrigue me. But again, that's a personal preference. It is, historically, it was used as a protectant for things outside. That charred wood doesn't interact with critters, bugs, and bacteria as much. So it will give the wood that's outside a longer life. But a lot of people really like the look of it, and so it has come up in many different ways and applications over the years for all sorts of different things. But it's kind of fun. You basically, you char the surface and burn it, and then you can either leave it charred, and use that as an exterior protectant. Or you can kind of brush off the extra char and you can get the different textures of the spring and summer rings, the texture difference between those. And it makes them all pop out almost as if it's sandblasted. There's a bunch of different other things you can do, especially when you soak it in epoxy, you start to get some interesting colors coming through the charcoal. So it's a fun process, but no, I haven't done it in a few years. What's next?
I'm getting all
She's
buffer,
trying to make
no
sure she gets all the
stream.
questions in.
I don't know why we have excellent connection. I'm sorry. Y'all might want to try it on your end. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, actually today we have a really solid connection, so.
Sorry. Oh, Alan is here tonight, and he has already super chatted.
Alan.
The Hobbit hole or the Gnome Queen woodworking.
A good channel.
I can imagine that thumbnail.
For those of you who are new to live, about half the channel is making fun of Sarah being short, and the other half is me trying to dodge things that she's throwing at me. So it's a good time in here.
Wow.
And then the other half is the kids barging in because they have something to say. So,
Just because I'm not letting her watch the live.
Why are you not letting?
the kids are trying to watch it upstairs while we're doing this down here. We're trying to think through.
Do it.
We don't have anything else coming up right now, so.
Well, tell her she can watch on her
I
phone.
don't know if I had any other questions.
Oh,
early.
she can't. That's why. Tell her to watch on her computer.
You need to put a lock on that door.
Oh my gosh. I'm
what's the
trying to
next
find
question?
my mom joke.
Oh yeah, mom joke. Yeah, if anyone super chats, you get a joke from mom, from Sarah, from mom.
Well,
Every now and then, my mom does show up here, so.
okay, this totally brings out my dark side. Y'all don't think I can have a dark side, but that's because I've been a nurse for a while. So, you ready?
I'm ready.
What leaves a bigger memory than a passionate kiss?
What?
A stab wound. I shouldn't
That
laugh
is
for
your
a while.
humor. Coming from the nurse, that's pretty normal. What's the next question? If she ever stops reading, she might go read it.
You should just not sleep tonight when I open. Let's see. Tom West had a question. What did he say? I've been playing with my new / old craftsman combination plane, and the circular spurs won't cut the grain fully, and it causes tear out. How do I fix this? I sharpened them the best I could.
Okay. The spurs, usually the problem is sharpening. So if you're saying you've sharpened them the best you can, I'm going to assume that they're sharp. But most of the time, you just need to sharpen them a little bit better. The other problem that commonly comes up is that they're not sticking out quite far enough. So let me see if I can show you on this. Let's focus this, I'll change it over. So on here, this right here is the spur or the nicker. And you can loosen that screw, and this is a blade that sticks down in front. And it sticks out flush with the skate here. And what that will do is if you're going across the grain, so my fingers are the grain, you go across the grain, that little spur will stick down and it will slice the fibers ahead of the iron, and so you're not getting any tear out. And so usually the problem is that that is not sticking down quite far enough. You want that to stick down a good bit thicker than you're shaving. So if you're shaving off, 5/100ths of an inch, that'd be a really heavy shaving. Let's say 2/100ths of an inch. Then you want this spur to be sticking down 4 or 5/1000ths of an inch. So this needs to be sticking down a good bit. But that also means it needs to be sharp. And I have a whole video on sharpening spurs. It's just one of these things you got to play with very, very carefully. Let me see if I got. Sometimes with the spur, you can take it out and crimp it down in vice grips. There's the word. And then you can use this. Back up here. I can use this and actually use it as the slide that it's sitting on. So it's clamped in there, and I can run this on the plate. Yes, I'm going to be wearing some material off of my vice grips, but oh well, it's holding it, and it's much better than trying to balance it with my finger and sharpen that tiny little thing. So vice grips make it much easier to sharpen those spurs. So what's next?
And
Oh, is that another super chat?
yes.
And it's got a question. What is Kenny asking?
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. I was just trying to answer to something. Kenny-Anjanette Horn said, making a wall-mounted tool cabinet with two 36-inch tall by 22-inch wide by 3-inch thick doors, oak. Will a piano hinge support the weight?
Wow, that is a thick door, 3 inches thick. Oh, you're talking cabinet doors, so there's storage on the inside of the door. Yeah, piano hinges are generally what you're going to want. Any decent piano hinge will hold that without much problem. 36-inch tall, 22-inch wide, yeah, no problem. That would be. I'm trying to think if there's anything I would go with more than piano hinges. Yeah, for 3-inch wide, I would use piano hinges personally. They're a little bit of a pain to set up and get them lined up perfectly, but they're incredibly strong because you're spreading the whole stress out along the whole thing, as opposed to having the stress at one point or another where a hinge might be attached. So definitely go with piano hinges.
Okay, hang on.
Ooh, we got a mom joke.
And
she collects these throughout the week, so they're
yes,
the good ones.
And if our children hop on and start saying something like Brian timed melody out. All right. I have a theme apparently going tonight.
She's morbid tonight. What is it?
What's green, fuzzy, and if it fell out of a tree, it would kill you?
Spray painted raccoon?
A pool table.
Yes.
Okay. To address the speed thing, you wanted ultra low latency, right, for the live?
No.
That's what's on.
Oh, let me go see if I can change that.
Maybe that will help our problem.
Did I accidentally bump the wrong setting? Where do you see? Huh, no, I can't change it now that it's running.
Ah,
It should just be low latency. I'll have to check
I
it.
know.
Apparently YouTube automatically selected ultra low latency now. So I'll have to put that on my list of things to check ahead of time. But unfortunately I can't change that now that it's up and running. So
Okay, and then totally missed the mom joke. Video kept blinking. Oh no, Cheryl.
no.
Well, Tom West has a super chat, so I'll go back to the first joke. But Tom West has a super chat.
What
Oh, can you not read it? It says, woohoo, thank you very much. Now a West has good spurs. Join Win by Wright 2 and support the channel. Knights of the White Oak Unite.
Yes.
I was seeing if he just threw up a question. So, is a Stanley 79 a good plane to have slightly open dadoes? Is it worth buying?
Stanley 79 is the rabbit plane? Try to remember. Oh wait, that one's the Miller Falls. If I remember correctly, the 79 is the rabbit plane. Yeah, generally on these you want to have a slightly larger mouth. You're not going to be treating these as a smoothing plane. A smoothing plane is when you'll really want to tighten that mouth up and make it really small. So often these are like a 1/16 of an inch or even larger. Actually, mine's almost an 1/8 of an inch. But there is no way of adjusting the mouth. You just put the iron in and what it is what it is. So, yeah. What's next? Babe?
I'm getting there. I have a
Oh.
joke for Tom now.
Ah.
He super chatted. So, I'll have to recoup all the mom jokes at the end. Okay, why does a chicken coop have 2 doors?
Why?
If it had 4 doors, it would be a chicken sedan.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Okay, I'm behind on so many not
All
jokes.
right, well, read me the next one and
Questions.
catch back up on them.
Okay, who's next? Harold Golden. I'm making some tools from ash log that was riven and dried for 4 years. I'm thinking that the annual growth ring should be vertical through the handle to make it stronger. Is that correct?
you're going to get lots of arguments about the direction of the growth rings on the handle. So generally, imagine this is it is a handle. So the question is, do you want the growth rings to go with the hammer front to back, or do you want the growth rings to go across the hammer? And you're going to get arguments going both ways. Generally, I actually like the rings to be out of focus. It really helps things being a little clearer and see. Here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but my rings are going across here. And so you can see the rings going this way through the wood. And that's what I like. I just tend to find it to be, well, number one, it's more stable in that it doesn't expand and contract as much. This way it expands and contracts more along the grain, along the rings. So it tends to make the handles more stable. People will tell you that the rings should go through it this way because theoretically that makes it slightly stronger. But I've never actually found any particular weakness over, oops, sorry, wrong one. I've never particularly found weakness over the grain going one way over the other. So that's why I like to have the rings going across the piece, just because it's more stable. But again, it's really a personal preference, so don't worry about it too much. If you have it riven, that's half the problem. Riven wood will give you a much stronger handle than anything else. And if it's riven and it's good straight grain, everything's clean, you're going to have a good handle no matter which direction you put it. So, but yeah, don't ever put that in a group that is dedicated to hammers and handles. Otherwise, you'll get all sorts of arguments. What's next? Ooh, she's commenting on something. I always like going back through the chat and reading through what I don't get to see, because I get to see rough things here, but I have to, in order to read it, I got to be up like this. So
it's your daughter yelling, "Mommy, Daddy," and everyone trying to figure out.
Oh,
so
yeah,
will you
our
please
kids are
tell your
watching
children
upstairs, so.
to?
What's the next question then?
Okay. Well, we had another super chat. So, Fenn asked, "Please demonstrate the use of a scraper. I'm having trouble finding the right angle and curve."
Ooh, scraper sharpening is one of these things that it is a pain to figure out, and until you first figure it out, you are up a creek without a paddle. But once you actually get it, everything clicks, and it just becomes so much simpler because it is one of these tools that is amazing to have. Let me make sure I have one that's actually still sharp. Yes. That's good. So what we've got here, and there is no right way to sharpen a card scraper. There is no right way to use a card scraper. And I can show 10 different ways to use it, and you'll find that 9 of them don't work for you. But that 10th one, that's amazing. And it's one of these things you just gotta try other things over time. So what I like to do is grab the card scraper, put 2 thumbs back here and this on here, and then bend it. Not much, just a little bit. I'm putting pressure in here. And what that's allowing me to do is it's allowing me to focus my cutting on just a little bit of the card scraper. So I'm not using the whole thing all the way across. I'm just setting it in and doing one small area. The other problem that people have is they tend to lay it down like this. And you're just gonna be getting these things. But then as you pick it up, it'll catch. And then soon, you'll actually be getting some shavings. Oop, that was actually catching. I guess that's not terribly sharp. Let me show you a decent shaving. See, getting shavings like that. This one's not crazy sharp. The shavings aren't that much in there. Probably could use a big good touch-up. Let me see if I can get another side. It's one of the nice things about it. You have multiple sides to use. Now that is the sharpest side of them. Yep. There's about as sharp as I can get. But you can see I'm getting more curls than dust. If you're getting dust, that means you're not doing it right. Either it's not sharp or you're at the wrong angle. Whereas most of the time, if you lift it up a little ways, you'll get these shavings that are actually shavings. They're actually curls.
Okay, so Fenn replied and said, "Your scraper is much thicker than mine. Does that matter? Also, I'm pretty sure I prepared the burr correctly."
Well, there is no correct way to prepare a burr or sharpen them. It's one of these things you've got to come up with a method that works for you. There's 1,000 different ways to do it, and if you ask 10 woodworkers on how to sharpen a card scraper, you're going to get 12 different methods. So just play around with it until you find one that works for you. But most of the time, the problem is the angle that they're holding the card scraper at. Mine are 32 hundredths of an inch. So it's 32 mil. And that's the stiffness that I like. It's not really flexible. There are really flexible ones, and there are ones that are really stiff, far stiffer than this. But these are the ones that I sell on my website. So if you want to see those, they're made by DMF Toolworks. So you can actually buy the exact same card scraper from him on Amazon a little cheaper. But if you want it with the Wood by Wright logo on it, then you can buy it from my channel and spend a little bit more on it. So, but yeah, it really comes down to the sharpening of the burr. Some people, let me grab my burnisher on here, and when you're sharpening it, I like to do multiple strokes straight across. So I'm keeping this perpendicular to the plate, 90 degrees across there. And then I'm going to do a few strokes where rather than it being 90 degrees, I'm just going to tilt it just a couple degrees and pull it along there. I'm going to do a few that way, and I'm going to turn the card around. I'm going to do a few this way. And so what I'm doing is with this, you're actually mushrooming this down and pushing the burr off. And then when you tilt it just a little bit, you're putting a little bit angle into that burr. Otherwise, you end up having to roll it a little bit farther down. Putting that angle allows it to be just a little more comfortable and up where you want it to be. The other thing is, oh, that's a nicer edge. I like that one. There you go. See, that's what you should be getting is more curls like that. This one's sharp. And you get this butter smooth surface. Just happiness. Yeah, so that's what you're looking for when you're scraping is curls like that. But most of the time it's people putting it down too far. You want it start 90 degrees with vertical and then slowly bring it down until it catches. And that's the angle you want it. Don't move it down any farther. So start vertical and then come to until it catches just a little bit. And that's what you're looking for with the card scraper. So what's next?
Oh, let's see. People are still having a lot of buffering. We're sorry, we can't fix it.
Yeah, unfortunately that's a new setting, so I'll have to keep an eye on that in the future.
All right, but we need to do a mom joke because we have super chatted.
Oh,
Ready?
cool.
Well, Aaron, his questions were
Aaron,
super
thank
chat.
you.
Ready?
Sure.
How do you keep bacon from curling in the pan?
How?
You take away their little brooms.
Got it. Yes. Good. On that note, what's the next question?
Oh my gosh. Oh, let's see. Harold asked, is it true that What? Okay, I think this is a legit question. Is it true that driving a squarish peg into a round hole actually fits better?
In wood, generally no. However, putting a square nail into a round hole is a good way to do it. It bites into the edges and holds itself in place better. So that's one of the things with cut nails. But in wood pegs, no. Usually you put a round peg in a round hole. I actually can't think of a situation where I'd want to drive in a square peg into a round hole for wood on wood. So no, I don't know where that would come from. But yeah, if you do know of someone who's suggesting that, send me the link. Maybe they're thinking of some particular application I'm not thinking of. So yeah, I don't know. But I don't see a reason to do that. What's next?
Let's see. We talked about my bench. Blue Kestral said, is there a problem with wood movement in mortise and tenon joints? Can my skirts kill my legs and my table?
Usually what you're thinking about is something like a 3-inch tall skirt running into a leg. And theoretically, yes, that is a cross-grain joint. And this board will want to expand and contract And so theoretically, that tenon in that joint will want to bust out the end. However, in practice, the amount of movement across 3 inches is not that much. It is within the compressibility of the wood. In other words, the amount of wood the amount of movement is, say, it's a that end up being like a really bad movement might be a 32nd of an inch. That 32nd of an inch is within the strength of those outside fibers to crush. And so in that case, the tenon will actually crush ever so slightly before this will bust out. So a skirt that's only 3 inches or 4 inches tall is not going to cause enough problem for it to be an issue. Where it really comes into is like the edge of a table, where rather than having a table that's 3 inches wide, you have your table that is 36 inches wide. Well, over 36 inches, your expansion and contraction may be an 1/8 inch or more. And that 1/8 inch could be larger than the crushability of the fibers in the end, in which case then you could be blowing out the ends and you could have other problems. And so that's where you have breadboard tenons that are actually a tenon slot, and the mortise is bigger so that the tenon has a little bit of flexibility to move inside of that slot. But for average skirts into table legs, no, that's not a problem at all. So hope that answered your question. What's next?
Okay, hang on one second.
Sorry, I'm a little sniffly. I was working with cedar today, and I am allergic to cedar dust.
As if you could give them anything through.
Yes, just a little more sniffly than normal.
I mean,
I was snorting actually using a circular saw.
although, would that be a computer virus? If you could give them the sniffles through the live.
You got that one for free, folks.
That was free. Do you hear like the weird murr sound in back of us?
The air conditioner?
No, is it? I don't know. There's something loud in the background in our house. Okay, hang on. I gotta figure out where we are in the questions. La, la, la. Harold, I just resharpened my draw knife, used the file, and then honed with a diamond stone to remove the burr. Should I strop that sucker too, or is that just vanity?
Yeah, I wouldn't sharpen a draw knife with a file. Most of the time, they're pretty well hardened, and so it might not be good for the file. But not all draw knives are really that hard. A lot of them are a good bit softer, and so a file would work fine for that. Usually I take them through the diamond stones, and for general work I'm using the draw knife to take off large material, and I'm just honing through stuff. And in that case, it doesn't need to be ultra keen. It just needs to cut through the wood, and so I'm not going to strop it then. Most of the time I'm going to end up using a spoke shave then to come back and clean up the wood, and the spoke shave has been stropped. However, if I'm going to be using the draw knife to do a finished surface and I'm really cleaning it up, then yes, I will strop it for that. So it really depends on your particular use. A well-stropped edge will catch into the wood much easier, and it will slide much easier, and it will pull much easier. And so that is a great benefit to it. But for general use, if you're just using it to hog off material and kind of using it as the scrub plane of the draw knives, then you're probably not going to get that much benefit out of a strop. So yeah, thanks. What's next?
I think it's Ryan Patrick. Y'all, if I skip your questions, I'm so sorry. Just throw them back in. Best way to flatten a plain sole without a flat block of granite?
You know, the people who say that you need to have a really ultra flat surface to do it on, no, that is an engineer or a machinist coming into the woodworking shop. Not necessary. Usually what I do is I get a pane of glass. Do I have mine here? Yeah, but it's buried. And so I have a pane of glass that I put on my bench top. And I take a belt sander. So I get one of those large, like 48 inch by 6 inch belts, and I cut it. So I have this 48 inch long strip, and I clamp it at one end of my bench, and I use that on top of the glass, and I run along that. And that cuts through it really quickly. I'm going to actually have a belt that's at 36 grit, and that cuts through steel really, really quickly. I mean, the worst flattening I've had on a number 8 is usually only like 30, 40 minutes of actual work to get it nice and flat and true. So I'll start with a 36 grit and then march up through the grits until I get to where I want. But the 36 grit will get it flat, and then I can go up to a 50 or an 80 and then into 100 and on from there. But no, it doesn't need to be absolutely dead flat. That's really overthinking things. What you're wanting is you want the heel, the toe, and the mouth. So heel, toe, and mouth to all be flat. If it's not flat here, oh well, it's not going to make any difference in its functionality and use. So as long as the heel, the toe, and the mouth are all flat, you're good. And that's why people can get away with corrugated planes, like this thing. So yeah, and then the other thing you have to think about is how big a shaving are you taking with the plane? If I'm doing it with my smoothing plane, my high detailed smoothing plane, then I might be taking 1/1000th of an inch. Well, in that case, I want my heel, toe, and mouth to be less than 1/1000th out of plane. And that's really tight precision. But if I'm going to be doing one of my jointers, and I'm going to be taking off, 1/100th of an inch, then in that case, I want the heel, toe, and mouth to be off within 100th. And that's a really large margin. So it's not one of those things you have to really worry about. So no, you don't need a big piece of granite. Go to your local glass store, get a piece of glass, put it on something that's relatively flat, kitchen table, something of that nature, and you'll be good to go.
Every time you talk about heel toe, I think about
Square dancing?
square dancing. Heel toe, heel toe, out, kick. Sorry.
Clog dancing.
Wait.
What's next?
Alrighty. Where are we at in the questions? Perez Hernandez. My brother gave me a Stanley Bailey number 5 type 20. Is it good enough for fine work?
Yeah. A type 20 is when they're starting to get not as good. So it'll take a little bit more to detail it in, but if you work on the plane and tune it up right, it will treat you very well. That would be a very good user. Now, when you're talking about fine work, any plane that I have can be turned into a smoothing plane. Any plane can be really detailed up. And if you want to see how to do that, I have a video, look for how to set up a smoothing plane. And I have like 4 or 5 videos doing that. Because you really want your tight dimensions on that. Usually for a number 5, that's a plane you're wanting to take off material with. And so it doesn't have to be really finely tuned and set up within an inch of its life. It's a plane designed to remove material rather quickly. And you get it close to where you want it to be, and then you bring in your smoothing plane and really detail it out. But for general use, that is a fantastic plane. So yeah, good job. What's next?
Mr. Alan Smith. What did he say? I want to build a Stanley 45 box. Can James have that as an upcoming project or point me in plans/layouts?
Actually, I did that 4 or 5 years ago where I made a box for a Stanley 55 and a Stanley 45. And I actually wanted to make one because normally the box comes for 45, it's about this size, but you have to break it all apart to get it in there. And so I wanted to make a box that would fit them assembled inside the box. And so that was actually for a friend out in Pennsylvania. But I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 years ago that I made those. So if you want to see that, look it up on there.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. You remember
Melody
taking those out
wants you to see her knock-knock joke. Can I tell you her knock-knock
there?
joke?
What's your knock-knock joke?
Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Mom.
Mom who?
Mommy and Daddy. Mommy and Daddy, I love you.
That's a good one, Melody.
Yes.
She's gonna have the best mom jokes.
Yes, it is. Go to bed, child. Let's see. We love our children. We love our children. Woodwork Learner. What did he say? Was the cap iron (parentheses chip breaker) purpose to make the iron seam thicker and reduce flexing of it, or just a means of aductment?
This is a very good question that will start many, many arguments. what it was the original use for it. And let me grab. Actually, do I have one here? Oh no, I don't have the big one here. So let me just put this one on there and kind of see what we got here. So what we have here, this is an old iron. Focus. There we go. And it is actually tapered, so it's thicker here than it is back here. And what they would do is put another iron on the back. And it would have been another actual iron. And what that does is it makes this thicker, it makes it stiffer, it makes it not flex or chatter as much. And no one really still knows what the very first person who put an extra iron on there was thinking. But with general assumptions is that if you put more on there, it's going to make it stiffer. Maybe they're having some problems with vibration, and so they just bolted on another piece of steel, and that made it stiffer and last longer, and so you'd have a chip breaker for that. And most people generally think that the original first use for it was to make the plate thicker and stiffer. But then along the way, someone will notice that as they were sharpening and getting close to that other piece of steel, and you only had a little bit of sharp edge on there, they weren't getting as much tear out. And nowadays, the main purpose of the chip breaker is not to stiffen it. The purpose of the chip breaker is to actually be a chip breaker. It's no longer a cap iron, it's now a chip breaker. And so these whaleback things do not add much of any stiffness to the iron at all. They are there with the intention of breaking the chip. Actually, what it will do is as the chip hits the iron and comes up that iron, the iron will try and dig underneath, and it will cause that chip to tear out farther down in. What will happen is the chip breaker will be on there and create a secondary bevel that it hits, and that will actually force the curl, the chip to curl in, and it compresses that chip and will cause it to allow the iron to slice it off as opposed to the iron going underneath. And there's a really cool video. I want one of these days to actually go in and show that. And they have this all set up under a microscope so you can see it actually happening. And when you see it, it is one of these light bulb moments that makes you realize how useful the chip breaker is at actually breaking the chips. But as to the original use, you'll get a lot of arguments about, no, it's a cap iron, no, it's a chip breaker. Nowadays with these things, they don't add any stiffness to it. They're really not going to do that. Some of the new ones that are thicker, yes, those will add some stiffness to it, but most of the Stanley whalebacks, they're not going to provide much of that. But they will work as a very good chip breaker. So hope that answered your question, but that's one of those caveats where I could talk about for hours. It's a fun thing to really look into.
So apparently iPhones are having better connection than anything else right now. So sorry, everyone.
What's next?
Dennis Meko. Old antique chisels are beat up. Should I use a grinder to get them straight and ready for stones, or do the 1,000 strokes?
You can use a grinder, no problem with that. You just have to make sure you have some water nearby. Put it on there for 2 seconds or so, pull it off, cool it down. Put it on there for 2 seconds or so, pull it off, cool it down. You do not want to heat that up above like 200 or 300. You start doing it much more than that and you're going to get close to ruining your temper on it. And you don't want a chisel with a bad temper. She got it, I got it, there we go. So yes, you can do that. Usually what I do is I get a really, really aggressive sandpaper, something like 36 grit, and you can do it really incredibly quickly with that. And you don't have to worry as much about the heat because it's slower doing this than it is doing it on the grinder. Grinder will heat it up very quickly. Whereas if you do it on some aggressive like 30-some grit sandpaper, it goes pretty quickly. So that's usually what I will do. But if I need a lot taken off, then I might take it over to the grinder. You just have to spend more time being careful not to overheat it. So, there. What's next?
All right. So let's see. Poor man asked, do I align my chuck or my bit with a bevel gauge when boring out at a specific angle?
Do I align my chuck or my bit with a boring gauge?
The bevel gauge.
Oh, I know what you're saying. So Let me grab some of these to demonstrate. So how do I set something up at a specific angle? So I've got a bevel gauge here, and we are going to drill a hole at this angle, whatever it is. So what you want to do is you're going to have an entry location in your work. So you actually have an all hole or something like that. Put your tip into that hole and just have this vertical. And then line the bit up with the angle. If you're going in at a steep angle, you're actually going to want to start cranking it down into the work. And then as you get it cranking down in, then slowly, I'm going to back it out because I don't want to drill into my bench. I'm going to slowly lay it down as I'm cranking it down until I get to the angle I'm looking for. But I'm going to be lining the bit up with the bevel gauge, not the chuck. And the reason for that is often the chuck is just oddly shapen and it's harder to visualize that, whereas the bit is a little bit easier, it's a little bit longer and straighter. So it's easier to visualize the bit than the chuck. And with some braces, there are things that are out of alignment. You just want to know this is the business end, it's what's actually going to be doing the cutting, so line it up with that. What's next?
All right, let's see. Tom West. I bought a hand crank grinder to do rough shaping of chisels. It has a small rest that makes it difficult to keep an iron straight. Do you think I should make a jig or make a big rest?
This is going to start another argument then. We're all about the arguments tonight. The angle that you want to grind to does not matter. So don't worry about it. The difference between 23 degrees and 26 degrees is superfluous. You're not going to notice a difference in its functionality and usability and durability. If you're off by a few degrees, you're off by a few degrees. Oh well. So that's my usual answer. But for something like that, if you're picky about it and it's something that's important to you, then I would definitely make a jig. Because there are people out there who that is very important to them, that it is specifically done and accurate. And I understand that machinist mindset. And if that's important to you, then fantastic, chase it. And the best way to do that is to make a jig. It will guarantee you get what you're looking out of it. But for most people, oh well. So it really depends on what you want out of it. If you are interested in being accurate and exactly where you want, make a jig. What's
I
next?
love it when people put jokes in the comments. Okay, Tom just super chatted. Thank you. I'll keep spinning in the right direction. Puts OCD in the drawer.
Thanks, Tom.
Need a mom joke. Hang on.
She's looking for the mom joke. Yeah, how many Knights of the White Oak are in the chat? Since we now have the Knights of the White Oak, and Sarah actually, well, I accidentally ordered one for Sarah. They come in different colors, and I had ordered pink, and I didn't realize I ordered one that was my daughter's size. But
I got it
surprisingly,
on.
She could get it on.
So. We won't talk about getting it off. All right. Why does Waldo only wear striped shirts?
Why?
So he doesn't get spotted.
I got it.
I'm so glad you got it.
What's next?
Let's see. Who are we at? Kenny-Anjanette Horn. You maybe have covered this with the wood movement video a couple weeks ago, but how does finish limit wood movement?
Well, what finish does, different finishes are going to slow it down in different ways. What it does is it seals the wood so that air can't get in and out. And if air can't get in and out, then the moisture can't get in and out. And if the moisture can't get in and out, then the expansion and contraction is far less. Now, the wood will still expand and contract some with heat, but nowhere near as much as it does with moisture. Now, most finishes will still breathe. Poly, lacquer, varnish, they will still breathe. They will still allow moisture to come and go. They will slow it down, and the more buildup you have on it, the more they will slow it down. But they will still allow it to breathe. The one caveat to that is if you fully encapsulate something in epoxy, such as a bar top epoxy, then that will stop the air movement. And you may have noticed some bar top tables actually tend to cup if they're not in an air-conditioned space. And that's because people forget to finish the underside. The whole top is encapsulated epoxy. So the top can't expand and contract, but the bottom will then expand and contract. And so you get this potato chip thing going on throughout the year. And so that's one of the reasons why you do finish all the way around. For things like boiled linseed oil and paste wax, it really doesn't stop the expansion and contraction much at all. It allows air to come and go almost as much as it does with raw wood. So different finishes will limit that in different amounts. So yeah, thanks.
So Aaron super chatted another question. And he wants to know, do you have a French polish technique?
Thank you, Aaron. I have attempted French polish a few times, and I have to say I'm not a fan of the look. I don't like glossy finishes. That's not my thing. So it's not something that I have really chased and tried to perfect. The method that I like to use is actually with a pad, and so you get like a t-shirt, you lay out a flat piece of t-shirt and you wad up another piece of t-shirt, put it into that, and then wrap it up around. You get this pad that then can rub the surface. And I'll use it with a combination of shellac with a little bit of oil in it, just allowing it to move around in there. And it's all about very little amounts and lots of layers. The more you build it up with very light amounts, the cleaner and smoother the surface you're going to get. That being said, it's not my bailiwick, so I don't want to give too much on that. It's not something I try to do that much. But yeah, so sorry. It's one of those things where there are 1,000 different ways to do it, and everyone you ask is going to have a different method of doing it. So try a few, test it out on something, and find something that you like, because different people like different ways, and that's one of the things that make the sport fun, because there is no right way to do it. What's next?
Mom joke time for Mr. Aaron Fenn. Let's see. What kind of music is scary for balloons?
Pop music?
Oh, you weren't supposed to get it. I think that's the first one you've actually got. All right, let's see. Justin Ling asked, I'm deciding between getting a rabbet block plane and a shoulder plane. I'm a hybrid woodworker and will use it for cleaning up tenons and rabbets. Can one do both jobs till I get till the other?
Yes. In all honesty, you could do most of anything with either of those. You can do block plane work with rabbet plane. You can do rabbet plane work with a block plane. So I would probably say you're better off with a rabbeted block plane, because you're probably going to be using it as a block plane more than you would use it for a rabbeting work. It's rare that you really need a lot of rabbeting work. You will need a lot more block plane work, and so generally I'm going to say get the rabbeted block plane rather than a rabbet plane. That will be the better one of the two. And yes, you can use a rabbeted block plane to do any rabbeting work. You just don't have the fence on there to make it a little easier. So yeah, that would be the direction I would go. What's next? Typing is what's next.
What?
Typing is what's next.
Yes. Lane Sinker asked, what is the best grain direction for making plain totes?
Yet another argument location. Although this one isn't quite as much of an argument, it is pretty well standard. I'm going to bring this one over because you can actually see it better. On this one, you can see the grain is going parallel to the plane, and that's usually what you're going to want. The reason being is that the strongest portion of the plane is in here. The problem with it is then you have the horn out here where the grain goes across it, and it's easy to break this horn off. And you'll see a lot of planes where they've been dropped and this horn's been broken off. The other answer is you can have the grain going this way, and that would seem to make it stronger because it would be much harder to break most things off. But the problem is then you get handles that will split this way, and they just suddenly shred apart on you. Or you'll have the toe here breaking off, and that's far worse because the toe is what's actually stopping this thing from rotating forward. So historically, and most all plane workers will tell you, put the grain in line with the plane. Though there are some people who will say, oh, do a hybrid of moving it one way or the other. Most people are going to tell you, have it in line with the plane. But that is one topic where you will get some people getting into an argument with you about, because everyone knows the right way to do it. So make sure you listen to everyone. What's next?
Let's see. Cheryl Dawkins asked, does anyone know which...
What? Our kid's broadcasting onto all the speakers. What's that, babe?
I told her to stop commenting.
Oh.
Cheryl Dawkins, does anyone know which plans manufacturer put out an anniversary number 4 plane? No other markings other than a red lever cap. Which plane manufacturer, not plans?
I do not know. I am not actually a plane collector, and so dating things and knowing things about the history of them is not my expertise. What I would suggest is you go online to the Facebook group. There's actually a plane collectors group that has a ton of information. If you put that on there, you will get lots of answers, and there's usually a collector who collects that specific type or brand who will be able to answer them very quickly. So, yeah, sorry. What's next?
Let's see. Ozzy6900 asks, I just picked up a Sandusky transitional jack plane to go with my 18th century wooden planes. Have you ever restored a transitional plane?
Yes, I think I have at least one video on restoring a transitional plane, if not 2. Do I have mine down here? No, it's over there. But yeah, transitional plane, you do a little bit of both things that you do for a wood plane and then the iron plane. So it's a little of both fun. Yeah, so it tends to be closer to an iron plane in that you're often restoring all the iron parts, and then you look at the wooden body and you ask yourself, is this wooden body worth keeping? If it's not worth keeping, you make a whole new wooden body. If it is worth keeping, then you just flatten it, and it's usually done with another plane. Flatten a plane with a plane, and you're good to go. There usually isn't too much more to do to it other than aesthetic, cleaning up the surfaces or filling a screw hole, or if the wood screw came loose. So, yeah. What's next? Besides a kid coming downstairs to bother us again.
Alrighty, let's see. How do you say this? Hang on.
Here, ask me the question. You can be.
Oh, you want to show your shirt off? Is that what you want to do, real quick? All right, Miss Go Princess.
I wanted to know.
She's the one who's been spamming in the comments tonight.
I didn't want to get anything off of you. I wanted you to be quiet on the chat.
Oh.
All right. Good
Melody,
night.
go upstairs. What's the question?
All right, Alex Afanaseyev. I'm sorry, I butchered that. What is your opinion about Stanley 110 plane? I just restored one I got for $2 and debating how/if I'm going to use it.
I do not know what the Stanley 110 is. Sorry. I think it's a scraper plane, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I would have to look that one up. Sorry. I'm not great at the Stanley numbering system. I mean, 1 through 9, yes, great. After that, it's kind of like another 45, another 55. But other than that, it's a rabbit plane. It's a scraper plane. I usually refer to them by what they are as opposed to their number. So, what's next?
Sorry. James Crandall asked, do you have a video on closing the mouth on an antique wood body plane with either wood or brass plate?
No, I don't have that one. That might actually be a good one. I've got a plane coming up here that I'm going to do some wood restoring or woodworking on it, but I don't think this one needs the mouth closed up much. It's an old coffin smoother, and I'll be working on it for one of that belongs to one of the viewers here. That's actually where this iron came from. So, no, I don't have a video on that. That'd be a good one though, one of these days, but not right now.
And they're typing it's a block plane, the 110.
The 110. Yeah, and I don't
Same.
know which particular type of block plane it is. That's one of the things about the Stanley numbering system is that there are a lot of block planes in the Stanley numbering system. There are a lot of scraper planes, and so it makes it very difficult to remember which one was that, what was the adaptation made to make a new block plane, and yeah, becomes confusing after that. So yeah, making the closing the mouth up is a lot like doing a butterfly. So if you watch how to do a butterfly, it's the exact same thing except for you're doing it with a rectangle as opposed to doing it with a butterfly. So 5 minutes left, so we don't have too much time left. We're not going to get to all the questions.
Oh, it was a non-adjustable block plane, if that helps.
Yeah. We're not going to get to all the questions, so if
I have one,
if we
two,
missed them, or
three, four.
if someone throws up a super chat, we'll get to it. But otherwise, we probably only have time for another 3 or 4 of them, if that. So
Okay.
we'll see what we get.
All right. Let's see. Perez Hernandez says, I wanted to reteeth a vintage handsaw for rough work. How can I determine the TPI when reteething the saw?
You can make it whatever you want. Yeah, a lot of people will get a saw and change it to whatever they particularly need, because all the plates, the saw plate is the same on every saw basically, so it doesn't really matter what tooth you put onto it. But if you're determining what the current tooth size is, then hold a tape measure up to it and count how many points are in 1 inch, and that's what its PPI is, points per inch, or TPI is teeth per inch. Points per inch is always one more than TPI, because TPI is how many full teeth are in an inch, and PPI is how many full points are in an inch. And so if a point is in the beginning and a point on the end, then that's an extra point. So, yeah.
All right. His Mercy 44 wanted to know if have you ever worked with dogwood?
I don't think I have actually. No. There are lots of fun woods out there I've never gotten a chance to play with, but maybe someday.
Let's see. Charles Midanar asked, would a laminated tote be preferable alternative for grain direction?
A laminated tote. Yeah, well, yes. If you really want the best tote out there, go get a piece of plywood and cut it out of that. That way you're getting the grain going in all directions. You drop it, it's really not going to be a problem. Bad Axe makes a saw handle made from really high-grade plywood. And you drop the thing and it's okay. It's not going to have too much problem. He actually has videos of dropping it from like 8 feet up and landing on the handle. And it survives it. And so, yes, plywood is by far the more durable than any standard grain. The problem with it is people are like, ooh, plywood, that looks bad. But it's actually a really functional, good wood to use for it. So, yeah, use it. It's fun.
Let's see. A Haunted Army asked.
Haunted Army?
A Haunted Army.
I like that one.
For a second, I thought it said a Haunted Amy, and then I had to reread it. Any specific files for sharpening an auger, or would engineer files do?
You can use any file that has a safe side on it. So let me grab my auger files. But there is a specific file design that is designed for augers. But any file that has a safe on it. And I have a link to this one on my website. I believe I do. But what I have on this is a smooth surface over here. But on the edge, I've got file on this. And then this one, I have file on the face, but the side is smooth. And that way, when you're getting up into the corner of a file, you're only working on one face at a time. You're not working on both. And that way you can make sure you're only hitting what you need. And especially with this one, it comes to a fine point up here. So if I'm working on a little tooth, I can actually get in there. Whereas most files are too big to get into some of the small teeth on an auger bit. So yes, there is an actual shape for an auger file. But do you have to use an auger file? No, you can use any file you have as long as it has a safe edge on there. So you're not grinding both the spur and the cutting edge at the same time. You just want to do one or the other. Otherwise, you start running into problems with over sharpening. What's next?
I think
One
we
more?
need to call it a night.
That's it?
Because a lot of people are having issues with buffering.
Cool.
So
No, you got to remember to check that one setting. I don't know if that's the problem or what, but such is life. So thank you all for joining us. This has been a fun one, and I think I'll do it for now. Until next time.
thanks
have a
for
wonderful day.
sticking with us tonight.